think for a mid laner, knowing your limits on a champion is very important, and that's what divides good mid laners from the best ones.
You can play more different champions in mid lane, and you can play a lot of different styles.
생국수 선수는 제가 볼 때 딱히 장점이 없고 뭐 단점도 딱히 없는 그런 무난한 선수 같아요.
There's generally players that plays aggressive but smart, and then there's the players that just plays aggressive.
Right now, the only guy that I think is same level or better even than me is Perks.
I believe that Betsy is a really strong mid lane at the moment, probably one of the strongest. He's really good at pressuring the enemy, and he knows how to trade properly, which is really important.
Febiven plays pretty much everything. It's very hard to outban him or outpick his champion.
I don't think I'm much different than the other mid laners, like people who have a wide champion pool.
유럽 미드들이 물론 저는 2부에서밖에 안 해봤고 이제 처음 1부로 온 거지만 유럽 미드들은 되게 잘하는 것 같아요.
I'm pretty proud because there were so many legends in the US.
Hola and welcome to the European LCS studios, coming to you live from Berlin, Germany. Things are heating up as our teams fight to stay in playoff contention and out of the relegation zone, as you get a look at our fans and the Giants walking past the trophy wall here in European LCS, as well as Fnatic getting a little zen in before their matchup against Rockcats, who are setting up on stage as we speak. There we see them, of course. Good evening. I'm EpicSkillshot supporter, joined at the analyst desk by Mitch Greco-Voorspels and Andy Various Day. 34 degrees Celsius outside and a lot of hot action on the Rift.
But we have air conditioning, so we don't care.
Exactly. Before we dive into tonight's matchups, we have a very exciting announcement about one of the biggest events of the 2016 season coming your way later this year. Let's take a look.
He's coming! I don't know! He's got to fire!
We'll be closing out All Stars as your champions!
Dios mío.
Dios mío, super excited. Barcelona, city of Anthony Gaudí, Sagrada Familia, Park Güell. Super excited to bring League of Legends there.
Sí.
See, fantastic. Of course, there is still a ways to go until España, and with plenty of league to play before then. I'd say this is a different table from yesterday, but it kind of isn't in terms of where the teams are ranked. Exactly the same.
Yep, we had a day of ties yesterday. Every team taking one win and one loss, which means that everyone right now is still in exactly the same place that they were last week. However, it still does mean that today's games will have a big impact if anyone can get that 2-0.
A bunch of ties, and a lot of the players yesterday on the desk also saying, well, we don't actually pay that much attention to the standings as they are now. For us, a lot of it is practice running up to those playoffs. However, you should be able to give yourself a bit of security with a 2-0 here and there.
Yeah, obviously everybody wants to jump ahead of the pack with the three-pointer versus the tie. I think the only teams that are really going to start caring about standings are the ones at the bottom of it, like teams like Origin should not be in 9th place as we are approaching the end of week 4 of the European Summer Split.
Well, at least they managed to pull out a tie yesterday in their game versus Fnatic Origin. That is a record-breaking game. Just a couple of stats, 8.28 seconds game time. That's an EU record. Then some CS records, a global CS record broken by Reckless, and then also by Febiven. 4,845 minions kills and 299,000 total gold. That's a lot of gold.
That's a lot of money.
It certainly is a lot of money, but based on the reactions from some of the players yesterday, perhaps not the greatest achievements that some players would necessarily want.
I mean, it's still the biggest, well, it's the largest CS number. It's still the largest CS number in the loss. Like, I'm sure these guys would have gladly not broken a record and then actually won the game. However, Fnatic too sloppy, many mistakes. Spoke to Feberman in the makeup room earlier too. He's like, yeah, I've made some mistakes. Started pointing them out. I was like, yep, I agree.
Yeah. Well, they can make up for them in just a bit because week 4 of the EULCS continues with Giants taking on Schalke in the arena on EULCS 1. And Roccat will battle it out with Fnatic in the studio on EULCS 2. And then later, Vitality will load into Drift against G2. And Unicorns of Love are going to face H2K.
I think the Giant Schalke one is actually going to be a big one in terms of standings because Schalke are trying to solidify themselves in something like that 4th place spot, trying to contest with the top 3 teams right now, whereas Giants, they're on the cusp of moving down to the bottom 4 and sitting in that top 6 playoffs.
Yeah, very close matchup. I have my eyes on Vitality versus G2 Esports because I think that's going to be a fantastic match casting-wise. Definitely looking forward to that one.
Why is that?
It's me and Sifa.
Ah.
Watch it.
All the rap references coming in. As always, after our final match of the day, we'll be jumping into the post-game lobby with a special guest, Senkux and Power of Evil, as mid-lane week continues. That's for the end of the day, but we still want you to hop on Twitter and send us in your questions for those guests at LL Esports with the hashtag AskAMidlaner. Anything from advice to compliments to anything
What
you
do
want
you
to
eat
know.
for breakfast?
What do you eat for breakfast?
I would like to know what Power of Evil eats for breakfast, so maybe somebody can tweet that in and get that on the show.
Yeah, let's do it. Now, let's dive into some more serious matters. The first matches of the evening, starting with Schalke versus Giants in the arena. Schalke had a matchup versus G2 yesterday, and they managed to beat them out in one, which is a very important win in the end for them, and Steve played a pivotal role in that victory.
Yeah, he certainly did. He went wild on that Olaf in game 2, and overall Schalke definitely doing a great job of punishing what was somewhat big mistakes coming out from G2, to be fair, and it was just a very impressive performance from Schalke.
Yeah, G2 they're continuing their low econ top style, which is fine, but it needs to be kind of supplemented with a lot of communication. And according to interviews, it's not there yet from Expect, and I think Schalke did a fantastic job capitalizing on that. They pivoted their compositions, their picks, their playstyle around Steve a lot, and he's kind of went and carried, because game 1 was closer and game 2 was convincingly won by Schalke, so they actually were almost a better team in that series despite it being a tie.
They're up against Giant. Smitty J was player of the game in one of the games of Giant yesterday. The first one wasn't really great, not the best draft for them. Verius, what draft do you like to see them go to pull out a victory?
So when we look at Giants' draft, it's very much about making sure that Knight is on something that he can make plays on, because in game 1 of the game against Vitality yesterday, they put him on a Karma in the mid lane. After speaking to them, they said, we don't usually play Karma ever in the mid lane, so we don't even know why we decided to pick that one up in game 1. And then when they fixed their issues in game 2, took Mighty Bear off of something that was putting a lot of pressure down in the early game and allowed Knight and Sunstar to have a decent laning phase. This is actually when Giants came together and had a solid game plan moving forward, which they could very cleanly execute.
We'll see how that match pans out between Schalke and Giants, but our first match in the studio will be Roccat going up against Fnatic. Roccat, as said, they have been struggling with their early game yesterday, a tie versus the Unicorns of Love, and in the post-game interview with Betsy, also said, well, I take a lot of that on myself and Arax, the fact that those early games aren't going well, and even the late game team fights aren't going well at this point. And then I asked the question, these two players have been playing together for so long, how come it is so up and down?
I mean, one of the potential explanations for all this could be that Roccat used to be honestly a pretty bad team with a strong core, which was then Roccat and Arax and Betsy together, trying to play from mid and just carrying. So they knew what was going into the games. Like, these guys are going to play together, they're going to try and carry. We're going to not pay any attention to top or bottom lane. But right now, actually, Arax has a slightly better top lane and a much better bot lane that he can play around, so he actually needs to start making decisions. And from what we've heard and kind of seen, Arax is a bit of a rigid player. He likes to wait the game to go the way he wants it to. He has it planned out in his head, and when sudden changes happen, or when he needs to kind of go into too large of a decision tree, he kind of melts down and gets caught overextending sometimes. And I think that's what's making them suffer right now. There's sadly too many options for him, and he's taking the wrong one too often.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. They're up against Fnatic. Where do they end now? After, you know, a top 2 team or a number 2 place team, but then they have that first 30-minute game versus OG, everything as planned, and then that slugfest, breaking all records, but not leaving us with the best feeling about them after that performance.
I think Fnatic are fully aware of what went wrong in their game against Origin, and moving into today, we heard a lot from Feberbin about how he took a lot of the responsibility on himself, and I think that he's a lot more motivated today and a lot more driven, and I think Roccat having to deal with this very powerhouse Fnatic that are coming into day 2 thinking we have to have a better performance, I'm a little bit worried for Roccat.
I think the game goes easy for Fnatic if they draft something with more crowd control too, though. Sometimes these low engaged comps are very complex, and Fnatic, given that their style is erring on the safe side of things, it makes it very hard for them to play if they get slightly behind. And they're really good at stalling on games, and they play kind of efficient League of Legends, but I think they're better off with some crowd control. Small example is talking to Reckless again before today's matches. He was like, yeah, I wish I built Iceborne instead of Triforce. And I was like, yeah, I agree, because I was whining about that for like 20 minutes during the cast. So they definitely need some more slows and some hard CC to make the game a lot easier for them.
How will it go bottom lane and top lane? As we said, obviously in the top lane, Gamsu, who we're not 100% convinced about, is in the bad player up versus Rakat Perang, who has been starved out. Might that be a window?
Yeah, I think Gamsu can definitely beat Perang up, and I think individual matchups, Fnatic just have the edge overall, and they have the better macro. I don't see this becoming anything else than a 2-0 for Fnatic.
Okay, Fetty?
It's interesting that you bring that point up, because looking at Roccat yesterday, the gold distribution was unbelievable with how many resources they actually invested into Steelback and how much they starved out Perang. So if looking into this game, we're going to have to keep our eyes on if Steelback can put anything up against Roccat.
Yeah, I do believe our casters are going to say a bit more about that as well. Our teams are setting up for picks and bans now, so it's time to say hello to our casters. Hi there.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Shocks.
Only Shocks, not
only Shocks. The rest
guys.
of you, not for you. I'm Daniel Sifa Dracos. This is the Dashing Martin Official Longer, and we're getting ready to kick off our first set of games today here on the arena. Of course, Giants versus Schalke, no fear. And before we jump into this game, let's take a look at those lineups. On the blue side starting out today, it's going to be Giants. Of course, for them in the top lane, Smitty J. It was his birthday yesterday. Things may be a little bit harder today. Jungle